Owen Fletcher sat in his downtown office, surrounded by blueprints and architectural models. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across his desk, highlighting the emptiness of the space he'd built. 6 months had passed since the divorce, 6 months since Claire walked out of their apartment with nothing but 2 suitcases and a broken heart. He'd thrown himself into work, designing buildings while his own life crumbled like poorly mixed concrete. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost ignored it, but something made him answer. "Mr. Fletcher? This is Dr. Rebecca Walsh from Mercy General Hospital. I'm calling about Claire Donovan." Owen's heart stopped. The architectural plans in front of him suddenly seemed meaningless, just lines on paper, while Claire's name echoed through his mind like a prayer. "What happened? Is she okay?" His voice cracked, revealing emotions he'd buried for months. "She gave birth this morning. Premature delivery at 33 weeks. The baby is stable but needs monitoring. Mr. Fletcher, Claire named you as the father. We need you here." The world tilted. Owen gripped his desk, knuckles turning white. A baby. His baby. Claire was pregnant when they signed those papers, when she told him she couldn't do it anymore, when she walked away from everything they'd built together. "I'm coming now." The drive through memory lane. Owen's hands shook as he navigated through city traffic. His mind raced faster than the cars around him. Why didn't she tell him? How could she carry this secret for 9 months? The questions piled up like the buildings outside his window, each one taller and more overwhelming than the last. He remembered their last real conversation, the one before lawyers and paperwork turned their love story into a legal transaction. Claire had stood in their kitchen, tears streaming down her beautiful face, saying words that still haunted him. "You love your buildings more than you love me, Owen. I wake up alone. I eat dinner alone. I fall asleep alone. What's the point of being married if I'm living like I'm single?" He'd wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong. But the words stuck in his throat because deep down, he knew she was right. His phone was always ringing with client emergencies. His mind was always designing the next project. He was present in body but absent in spirit, a ghost haunting their marriage. The hospital appeared before him like a concrete monolith, sterile and intimidating. The reunion no one planned. Dr. Walsh met him in the lobby, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes that had seen too many complicated situations. She led him through sterile hallways that smelled of antiseptic and fear. Each step felt heavier than the last. "Room 412, she said gently. "She's been asking for you." Owen paused outside the door, his hand hovering over the handle. What would he say? How could he face the woman he'd failed, who'd carried his child alone through pregnancy and divorce? He pushed the door open. Claire lay in the hospital bed, looking smaller than he remembered. Her dark hair was pulled back, revealing a face pale with exhaustion. But when her green eyes met his, time collapsed. Every moment they'd shared, every laugh, every kiss, every argument, it all rushed back in a wave that nearly knocked him over. "Owen," she whispered, and the sound of his name on her lips was both comfort and torture. He crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping at her bedside. "Claire, why didn't you tell me?" Tears filled her eyes. "I found out 2 weeks after we signed the papers. You were already moving on, taking that project in California, building your empire. What was I supposed to do? Call you and trap you with a baby you never planned for? Trap me?" Owen's voice rose, then fell as he remembered where they were. "Claire, you're not a trap. You never were. I was the one who failed. I was the one who chose blueprints over you." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "You chose your dreams, Owen. I can't fault you for that. I just couldn't keep sacrificing mine to watch you chase yours." Meeting the miracle. "Where is she?" Owen asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Our daughter. Where is she?" Claire's expression softened, transformed by a love so pure it made Owen's chest ache. The nursery. She's tiny, Owen. So incredibly tiny. They have her in an incubator, but she's fighting. She's strong. Like her mother, Owen said without thinking. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, the hurt and anger faded, replaced by something fragile and hopeful. But before either could speak, a nurse entered. "Would you like to see your daughter, Mr. Fletcher?" Would he like to? It was all he wanted in the entire world. The neonatal intensive care unit was quieter than Owen expected, filled with the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle whoosh of tiny lungs learning to breathe. The nurse led him to an incubator in the corner, and Owen's entire world condensed into the small space before him. She was perfect. Tiny fists waved in the air. A small nose that looked exactly like Claire's. Thin wisps of dark hair peeking from beneath a pink cap. She was no bigger than his forearm, covered in wires and tubes, but she was the most beautiful thing he'd ever created. "Her name is Lily," Claire's voice came from behind him. She'd followed him, leaning on a nurse for support. Lily and Fletcher. Owen placed his hand against the warm glass, wishing he could reach through and hold her, protect her, make up for every moment he'd already missed. "Hi, Lily," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I'm your dad. And I promise you, I'm going to be better for you than I was for your mom. I'm going to be here." Claire came to stand beside him, so close their shoulders touched. Neither pulled away. They stood together, watching their daughter fight for each breath, and Owen knew that everything had changed. The phone call had come at the wrong time, in the middle of his carefully reconstructed life. But as he looked at Lily, then at Claire, he realized maybe it was exactly the right time. Maybe some things needed to fall apart completely before they could be rebuilt into something stronger. The first week passed in a blur of hospital routines and careful conversations. Owen cancelled every meeting, pushed back every deadline, and essentially disappeared from his architectural firm. His partners called repeatedly, their voices tight with concern and frustration. The Henderson project needed his approval. The City Planning Commission required his presence. But Owen let every call go to voicemail. For the first time in his adult life, work came second. He arrived at the hospital each morning at 6, carrying fresh coffee and pastries from the bakery Claire used to love. Sometimes she was awake, sitting beside Lily's incubator with dark circles under her eyes. Other times he found her sleeping in the uncomfortable chair, her hand pressed against the glass as if she could protect their daughter through sheer will. On the 8th day, Owen brought lunch from an Italian restaurant they'd visited on their first anniversary. Claire's eyes widened when she saw the familiar containers. "You remembered," she said softly, accepting the pasta primavera. "I remember everything about you, Claire. That's the problem." She looked at him over the container, fork suspended midair. "What do you mean?" Owen settled into the chair beside her, suddenly exhausted. "I remember how you liked your coffee with honey instead of sugar. I remember that you hummed when you were nervous. I remember the way you'd fall asleep reading, with your bookmark still in your hand." He paused, gathering courage. "I remember all these beautiful details about you, but I forgot to actually be there to experience them. The sister who speaks truth." Claire set down her food, untouched. Before she could respond, the door swung open and a woman stormed in like a hurricane wearing designer jeans and righteous anger. Nina Donovan had always terrified Owen slightly. Claire's older sister was a corporate lawyer with a sharp tongue and sharper instincts. She took one look at Owen and her expression hardened. "You've got some nerve showing up here," Nina said, crossing her arms. "Nina, please," Claire began, but her sister wasn't finished. 6 months, Owen. She was alone for 6 months. Pregnant, heartbroken, and alone. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? Owen stood, meeting Nina's furious gaze. "You're right. I don't know. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. Until the next big project comes along? Until some client waves enough money in your face? Nina stepped closer. I've already talked to Claire about moving to Boston. I have a house with plenty of room. Lily needs stability, not false promises. The words hit Owen like physical blows. Boston. 300 miles away. He looked at Claire, searching her face for denial, for reassurance. What he found instead was uncertainty. Claire? His voice came out strangled. You're considering this? She wouldn't meet his eyes. Nina's right about needing stability. And she's offering help I can't refuse. Real help, Owen. Not just coffee and guilt-driven visits. Guilt-driven? Owen felt anger rising, hot and defensive. You think this is guilt? I'm here because I want to be here. Because that's my daughter lying in that incubator. For now, Claire said quietly, finally looking at him. But what about in 3 months? 6 months? When the excitement wears off and you remember you have buildings to design and awards to win? The argument that clears the air. Owen ran his hands through his hair, a gesture Claire recognized from 1,000 arguments. But this time, instead of walking away like he used to, he stayed. He pulled his chair closer to hers, close enough that their knees almost touched. You want to know the truth? His voice was raw, stripped of pretense. I'm terrified. Absolutely terrified. I don't know how to be a father. I barely figured out how to be a husband, and I failed spectacularly at that. But Claire, I'm more terrified of losing you both without even trying. Nina opened her mouth to interject, but Claire raised her hand, stopping her sister for the first time Owen had ever witnessed. Keep talking, Claire said to Owen, her voice trembling. I destroyed our marriage by putting everything else first. I thought success would make me worthy of you, but all it did was push you away. Owen leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't make mistakes. But I can promise that every mistake I make from now on won't be because I chose work over you. It'll be because I'm human and trying my best. Tears streamed down Claire's face. You hurt me so badly, Owen. Do you understand that? I loved you with everything I had, and it wasn't enough to make you stay present in our life. I know. Owen reached for her hand hesitantly. She didn't pull away. I was so afraid of failing at work that I didn't realize I was failing at the most important job I had, loving you. Nina watched this exchange with narrowed eyes, her lawyer instincts clearly analyzing every word. Finally, she sighed. I'm going to get coffee and give you 30 minutes to talk. But Claire, my offer stands. You and Lily always have a place with me. She shot Owen one last warning look before leaving. The confession that changes everything. Alone again, Owen and Claire sat in heavy silence. Lily's monitors beeped steadily, a reminder of what was truly at stake. I was scared too, Claire admitted. When I found out I was pregnant, my first thought was joy. My second thought was terror. Because I knew you'd either go all in from obligation or you'd resent us for derailing your plans. You thought I'd resent our child? I thought you'd resent the timing. The inconvenience. The way a baby would demand your attention when you'd rather give it to your work. Claire wiped her eyes. So I decided to do it alone. At least then, if you weren't there, it would be by my choice, not your absence. Owen felt something crack open inside him. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. And the fact that our marriage gave you reason to think that way breaks my heart. Mine too, Claire whispered. He squeezed her hand gently. I met with my partners yesterday. Told them I'm stepping back. Not leaving entirely, but taking a secondary role. No more 80-hour weeks. No more choosing projects over people. Claire's eyes widened. "Owen, your firm is your life." "No," he said firmly. "My firm was my excuse. My way of hiding from real intimacy, real vulnerability. Building relationships is terrifying. Buildings are predictable. They follow rules. They don't ask for emotional availability." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles softly. "But buildings don't love you back. Buildings don't make your heart race when they smile. Buildings don't give you a daughter who looks like an angel." For the first time since he'd arrived at the hospital, Claire smiled. Really smiled. "You always were good with words when you actually used them. I'm going to use them more. I'm going to use everything more, my time, my presence, my heart. When crisis reveals character." They talked for hours, sharing fears and hopes, apologizing for old wounds and tentatively discussing possibilities. It felt like the early days of their relationship when conversations flowed like rivers and everything seemed possible. Then Lily's monitor alarm shattered the peace. Both jumped up as nurses rushed in. Dr. Walsh appeared within seconds, her calm demeanor doing little to hide the urgency of the situation. "What's happening?" Claire's voice was pure panic. "Her oxygen levels are dropping. We need to adjust her breathing support." Dr. Walsh worked quickly, her hands steady even as Claire's world trembled. Owen wrapped his arms around Claire from behind, holding her upright as she swayed. "She's going to be okay," he murmured, though his own heart hammered with fear. The next 10 minutes were an eternity. Medical staff moved with practiced efficiency while Owen and Claire clung to each other, two people who'd spent months apart now unified by terror and love. Finally, the alarm stopped. Lily's numbers stabilized. Dr. Walsh turned to them with a tired smile. "She's stable. This is normal for premature babies, scary, but normal. She's fighting hard." Claire collapsed against Owen's chest, sobbing with relief. His arms tightened around her, and he pressed his face into her hair, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with hospital soap. "I can't do this alone," she whispered against his shirt. "I thought I could, but I can't." "You don't have to," Owen said, pulling back just enough to see her face. "I'm here. For every alarm, every fear, every sleepless night. I'm here." Claire looked up at him, mascara smudged, face blotchy from crying, and Owen thought she'd never been more beautiful. "Don't make promises you can't keep," she said, but there was hope in her voice now. "Then watch me keep them," he replied. They stood there, holding each other beside their daughter's incubator, two broken people trying to piece together something new from the fragments of what they'd lost. It wasn't the ending either of them had planned. But sometimes, the best stories are the ones that refuse to end where they're supposed to. 3 days after Lily's oxygen scare, Owen sat in the hospital cafeteria at 2 in the morning, drinking terrible coffee and staring at his laptop. His brother Thomas had sent 17 emails, each one more frantic than the last. The Henderson project was falling apart. The clients were threatening to walk. His architectural firm, the empire he'd built over 15 years, was crumbling. His finger hovered over the keyboard. One email could fix everything. One meeting could save the deal. He could drive to the office right now, spend a few hours smoothing things over, and be back before Claire woke up. The old Owen would have already been in the car. The new Owen, the one who'd spent every night for 12 days sleeping in an uncomfortable hospital chair, closed the laptop. Some buildings weren't worth the foundation they'd cost him. He returned to find Claire awake, standing beside Lily's incubator with an expression that made his blood run cold. Dr. Walsh stood beside her, and the grim set of the doctor's mouth told Owen everything he needed to know before anyone spoke a word. "What's wrong?" Owen crossed the room in 3 strides. Dr. Walsh turned to him with professional compassion. "Lily has developed an infection. It's serious, Mr. Fletcher. We're starting aggressive antibiotic treatment, but with premature babies, these situations can escalate quickly." The world tilted. Owen reached for Claire's hand, finding it ice-cold and trembling. How serious? His voice didn't sound like his own. We'll know more in the next 24 hours. Right now, we're doing everything we can. After Dr. Walsh left, Owen and Claire stood frozen, neither able to process the nightmare unfolding before them. Their tiny daughter, who'd been doing so well just yesterday, was now fighting for her life against an enemy they couldn't see or control. "This is my fault," Claire whispered. "I stressed too much during pregnancy. I didn't take good enough care of myself after the divorce." "Stop." Owen turned her to face him, his hands gentle but firm on her shoulders. "This is not your fault. Infections happen. Dr. Walsh said it's common in premature babies." "But what if?" Claire's voice broke completely. "What if she doesn't make it, Owen? What if we lose her before we even really got to know her, the longest night?" Owen pulled Claire into his arms, feeling her entire body shake with sobs. He had no words of comfort because he was just as terrified. So instead, he just held her, one hand stroking her hair while silent tears ran down his own face. They spent the night taking turns sitting with Lily, each of them talking to her, singing to her, begging her to fight. Owen told her about the treehouse he'd build her one day, the one with windows facing east so she could watch the sunrise. Claire described the garden they'd plant together, full of flowers and vegetables and a special corner just for fairy houses. Around 4 in the morning, exhaustion finally claimed Claire. She fell asleep with her head on Owen's shoulder, her hand still reaching toward Lily's incubator. Owen stayed awake, watching both of them, his entire world contained in this small hospital room. His phone buzzed. Thomas again. The Henderson deal fell through. Partners are furious. Call me. Owen turned off his phone. Let them be furious. Let the deal fall through. Let the whole architectural firm collapse into dust. None of it mattered if Lily didn't survive. None of it had ever really mattered compared to this, to love, to family, to the people who made life worth living. The dawn of understanding. Claire stirred as dawn light crept through the window, painting the room in shades of pink and gold. She blinked up at Owen, disoriented, then remembered where they were and why. Fresh tears filled her eyes. "Any change?" she asked hoarsely. Owen checked the monitors. "Numbers are holding steady." "That's good, right?" "That's something." Dr. Walsh arrived at 7 with her morning rounds. She examined Lily carefully, checking readings and making notes. The tension in the room was suffocating. Finally, she turned to them with a small smile. "The antibiotics are working. Her white blood cell count is starting to decrease. She's not out of danger yet, but she's responding to treatment." Claire's knees buckled. Owen caught her, holding her upright as relief flooded through both of them like a wave. "Thank you," Claire whispered to the doctor, to God, to the universe, to anyone who would listen. After Dr. Walsh left, Owen and Claire sank into chairs, hands clasped together, too emotionally exhausted to speak. They'd survived the night. Lily was fighting. That was enough. "I need to tell you something," Owen said quietly. "The Henderson project fell through last night. The one I've been working on for 2 years. My partners are probably drawing up papers to force me out of the firm." Claire's head snapped up, eyes wide. "Owen, that project was worth millions. That was going to make your career." "I know." He met her gaze steadily. "And I don't care. I turned off my phone at 4 in the morning and I haven't turned it back on. Because none of it matters without you too. You can't just throw away everything you've built." "I'm not throwing it away. I'm choosing something better." Owen stood, pulling Claire up with him. "I spent our entire marriage choosing wrong. Choosing prestige over presence. Choosing success over love. I'm done choosing wrong." Claire stared at him, searching his face for regret or resentment. She found neither. The firm might survive without me, Owen continued. Or it might not. Either way, I'll figure something out. I'm a good architect. I can work anywhere, for anyone, on my own terms. He cupped her face in his hands. But I can't get another Claire. I can't get another Lily. You two are irreplaceable. The proposal that wasn't a proposal. What are you saying, Owen? Claire's voice trembled. I'm saying I love you. I never stopped loving you. I was just too stupid and scared to love you the way you deserved. He brushed away a tear from her cheek. I'm saying that I want to be a family. A real family. Not the broken version we had before, but something new. Something better. I'm still so angry at you, Claire admitted. For all the missed dinners and forgotten anniversaries and choosing conference calls over conversations. You should be angry. I deserve that anger. But I also still love you, she continued, fresh tears flowing. I tried so hard not to. I told myself I was over you. But then you showed up here and you were different. Present. Real. And I started hoping again, which terrifies me. Owen pressed his forehead against hers. Hope terrifies me too. But not as much as losing you again. What if you slip back into old patterns? What if the firm calls and you can't resist? Then you call me out. You remind me what matters. You hold me accountable. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. I'm not asking you to marry me again. Not yet. I know I have to earn that. But I'm asking for a chance to prove I've changed. To prove that you and Lily come first, always. Claire closed her eyes, and Owen waited, barely breathing. When she opened them again, they were clear and determined. Okay, she whispered. One chance, Owen. But if you break my heart again. I won't. He sealed the promise with a kiss, soft and tender and full of unspoken vows. 3 months later. The apartment in Brooklyn was smaller than their old place in Manhattan, but it had something the penthouse never did, warmth. Owen had chosen it specifically for the large windows that flooded the living room with natural light and the small balcony where Claire could grow herbs. He'd also chosen it because it was 10 minutes from his new studio. After leaving his firm, Owen had started his own practice, focusing on sustainable residential architecture. Smaller projects, more meaningful work, and absolutely no evenings or weekends away from home. Claire walked into the living room carrying Lily, who'd finally been released from the hospital 2 weeks earlier. At 4 months old, she was still tiny but growing stronger every day. Someone wants her daddy, Claire said with a smile. Owen looked up from his drafting table, set up in the corner of the living room instead of a separate office because he wanted to be part of the family rhythm, and his heart swelled. This was what mattered. He crossed the room and took Lily in his arms, marveling at how much she'd grown. Her eyes, deep blue like his, tracked his face. When he smiled, she smiled back, a gummy grin that destroyed him every time. How's my girl? He murmured, kissing her forehead. She's perfect, Claire said, leaning against him. Just like her daddy. I'm far from perfect. No, but you're here. Every day, you're here. That's all that matters. Owen wrapped his free arm around Claire, pulling her close so the three of them formed a tight circle. Through the window, the Brooklyn sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. I got an email today, Claire said quietly. From Nina. She wanted to know if my offer to move to Boston was still on the table. Owen tensed despite himself. And? I told her thank you, but no. Our home is here. Our family is here. She looked up at him. You're here. Relief flooded through Owen. I would have gone with you. If you'd chosen Boston, would have moved my practice, found new clients, whatever it took. I know. That's why I said no. Claire reached up and touched his face. Because the man I married wouldn't have said that. But the man you've become would. And I want to see who that man becomes next. Owen kissed her then, soft and sweet, with Lily nestled between them making happy baby noises. The ending that's really a beginning. That night, after Lily was asleep in her nursery, Owen and Claire sat on the balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and comfortable silence. The city hummed below them, alive and busy, but up here, they had peace. Do you miss it? Claire asked. The firm? The big projects? Owen considered the question honestly. Sometimes I miss the rush. The challenge of designing something massive and complex. He took her hand. But then I come home to you and Lily, and I realize I'm building something even more complex and important. A family. A life. That's the masterpiece I want to create. That's very poetic for an architect. You bring out the poet in me. He grinned. Among other things. Claire laughed, the sound light and genuine. I never thought we'd get here. After the divorce, after everything, I thought we were finished. So did I. Owen pulled her closer. But maybe we needed to fall apart to figure out how to fit back together the right way. What happens now? Claire asked. Where do we go from here? Owen looked at her in the moonlight, this woman who'd given him a daughter, a second chance, and a reason to be better than he'd been. Now? He smiled. Now we take it one day at a time. I wake up every morning and choose you. Choose Lily. Choose this life we're building together. And tomorrow, I'll make the same choice. And the day after that. And if it gets hard? Then we'll face it together. No more running away to work. No more choosing wrong. He kissed her forehead. I promise you, Claire. This time, I'm all in. She believed him. Not because he'd said the right words or made grand gestures, but because every single day for the past 3 months, he'd shown her through actions that he'd truly changed. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. Both of you. More than any building I could ever design. And as they sat there under the stars, with their daughter sleeping peacefully inside and their future unfolding before them like a blueprint waiting to be filled in, Owen realized something profound. The best architecture wasn't made of steel and glass. It was made of moments like this, of second chances and hard-won trust, of midnight feedings and shared coffee, of choosing love over and over again even when it was difficult. He'd spent years building an empire. Now he was building something better. He was building a home.